Hello and welcome, one and all. I am Joshua McGee. You're watching Unboxing. It's July 25th. I turned 30 yesterday. Whoop whoop! It's a big 3-0.
Ooh.
I'm finally a big boy. So there's one little thing I want to talk about. In MMO news, which we don't cover, Final Fantasy 14 has surpassed World of Warcraft. World of Warcraft, WoW, has been on top since it released, and it has been passed. Um, But, however, since we do prefer to talk about TTRPGs here on our Ampersandbox, Final Fantasy is releasing. They have like some starter stuff already out, which is wicked expensive for like here's our starter kit, $60 just to get a feel for it. But Final Fantasy is releasing TTRPG officially, I think at the end of February. So I haven't played it because I'm not throwing money at the practice round. But I do know some of the rules, and let's talk about it a bit.
Actually, as you're doing that, I wanted to get it ready and I looked it up. They have the player book free version, so it's only like 21 pages that you
Ooh,
can like peruse, and their dungeon mastered book for free
oh,
as a trial.
nice.
So that is cool.
That is cool. I
Uh
didn't know that. I don't look that
yeah.
hard either.
Oh. Hey guys, I have this topic I want to talk about today, but I haven't looked at
Yeah, I don't know shit about it.
it.
I'm a little more about it. I mean, the one thing I can say definitely about just Final Fantasy in general is I'm glad that they're doing the like Final Fantasy Tactics, which is the original like artist design when they were doing like Final Fantasy 1, but like a little revamped.
Yeah,
Where it's like like sketchy watercolor kind of
yeah.
look. I really like that over anime because I've been seeing a lot of Kickstarters and stuff be like anime 5e. I'm like, just make your own
Yeah.
system. So it's nice to see this.
No, I agree. That was like the first thing I was gonna say about this as well is this art style. Like Final Fantasy as a whole has always had a really, really good and really distinct art style. And like you can even go back to like gosh, I believe like Final Fantasy
No! No!
7, like the older version, not the remake. And you can see this similar like art style in that as well. And it's just such a strong and recognizable style.
So doing a quick cursory glance, I do like one that their playtest material is only 21 pages, unlike the like 200 something of some other system that like some well-known tabletop community has made that just repeats itself. So I like that this is condensed and concise, like a concise rules that they have. I think the thing looking through it is it does give me kind of like D&D 5e vibe, considering that the stats, let's go back to them. Because you can also pilot companions, which is cool. So it looks like that's gonna be part of the game. Is strength, dex, vitality, int, and mind. So it is basically it sounds like they also kind of have like a 5e skills. I mean 5e does I should say video game video game stats.
So what's
Yeah.
up with these? I've seen it said a few times throughout here. They have like job cards and like playable jobs and stuff. Like what the do you have either of you played any of Final Fantasy to know that like what that is here?
Well, I know that in like Final Fantasy Tactics, you have roles like you can be like a squire that then goes into a knight that then based off of that can go into like a dragoon.
Yeah.
Um, which would to me make the most sense if you're going to do a tabletop version, like to shift and lift the tactics game and classes.
Job would be more like a subclass.
Yeah.
Okay. So like you're playing a ranger and then your job would be Bloomstalker.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got it.
If you want to be like a red mage or a black mage, you'd have to be a arcanist first.
Okay. So it's just a way of diving deeper into your class.
But they're not
That's really
class swap.
neat.
Like a couple different classes can have a couple different jobs. One thing I saw about it is it goes to level 60, and but the customization seems more linear than D&D, which we're used to. Grab whatever spells you want, grab whatever feats you want. Kind of more obviously D&D is very sandboxy, very choose your own adventure, literally. This one looks like you just kind of follow your level track or like a skill, more like a skill tree. It's like a minimum of 60 sessions to do a
If you do
yeah,
one level.
yeah.
But you know, I'll be honest, like we've talked about this in the past. I have always had a bit of a disdain for the 20 level system that D&D uses. I understand why it's there. Like I do understand, but it also feels very much like, okay, now that we're 20th level, what do we do with this character? I guess you retire it, and some people
Yeah,
do like what we've talked about, gestalt leveling, where it's like you start
right.
another class over from one. But I like the idea of expanding this out because I mean, honestly, 60 levels. I mean, I don't know
That
how
sounds
they're
fun.
doing it fully. It seems like a lot, but that's probably a ton of fun to play through.
Yeah, that
Like, could
sounds
you
really fun.
imagine like a 4-year game where you get to like level 50? You know what I mean? Over the course of 4 years, like, that'd be so much fun.
Yeah, that'd feel amazing.
You could also level a little bit more often that way as well, because I feel like that's one of the lines that we have to straddle with as D&D players, and you guys can probably speak more to that. How do you straddle that line of leveling? And if you had 60 levels, would you feel more, like, okay giving away level?
I think from game design too that I've done along with DMing, it's more how does your system back your leveled tiers in levels of play. So like in Dungeons and Dragons, because a lot of people know it, like there's 1 through 5, 6 through 10, whatever the tiers of play. So like realistically, that's why a lot of people also stop playing around level 10 is because their characters get so OP. It doesn't make sense to just be like, I got a quest from some weird guy in a tavern. It's like, no, a king should be giving you something. Some weird demigod or whatever, or the avatar to some other god is like, we need your help for an ongoing, like a crisis that is coming. Only your team of well-trained adventurers who leveled up to level 10 over the course of a weekend? Like, like you went into a dungeon for a weekend. Brendan Lee Mulligan said it the best. It's like if you actually look at the time scale that most campaigns take place in, it's like maybe 10 days where
Yeah.
there's something wrong down in the dungeon, and I'll take this ragtag team of vagabonds through. And then over like 5 to 7 days, they come back and they're level 20. And it's like, what?
Yeah. What did you guys do in there?
Yeah. So it really depends on like the game. So what I like to do for Dungeons and Dragons is once you get to level 20, I kind of do like a hard reset, but there's a lot of rules that are just assumed at a certain point.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'm going to have you all at level 21. Well, there's like a weird mix where there's epic classes that I'll let go up to 30. I'm like, okay, we can talk about what you want because really at that point it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
You're
21
level
through level
30.
30 character.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's some like numbers, like it's easy to track the proficiency modifiers and whatnot. But I'm like, instead, what I like to do is the demigod path where mundane items don't hurt you and spells under a certain level don't hurt you. So like you start back at level 1, but you're demigod at level 1. So you have like, 11, 12, whatever hit points of your class. Nothing like no weapons under +2 can hurt you. So like
Mhm.
people have to like actually do that. You have all your spells, like if you are fighting like a level 10 regular person, no, you just pretty much wipe them out. Like
Yeah.
they're effectively a level 0 to you. You're just like,
Yeah.
oh, Eldritch Blast.
That kind of reminds me of there's a fairly well-known fantasy author named Andrew Rowe, and he has these series of characters that he calls visages. These visages at one point were just normal people with magic and stuff, right? They were just the normal, like everyone has magic in this world, or they have attunements rather, and they were just normal tuned people. But at some point, they became powerful enough to be these visages, and you're gonna just walk into one of the towers in there and beat up a visage. You're gonna have to be at visage level to also do damage to them. You're not gonna pull up a +3 longbow and just be like, "I've got you now."
Yeah. Well, that's the fun lore of Dungeons and Dragons is actually that based off and that's where I got my like god tiers from or demigods is like the lore is that a human cannot hurt a god. Or and then a god cannot hurt like because they also have tiers of godhood. They can't hurt anything that's like above them. So they either have to find an item that gets them close enough in tier, and that's why it's like a +2, +3, whatever weapon that like breaks that. And we kind of see it in their rules as written when it's like like resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, unless it's magical.
Mhm.
which is like the lower echelons of that. So that's the same kind of thing with the visage where it's still that same logic of like you have to be to hurt a demigod, you have to be a demigod, or you can be a human that has some magic item that weakens them, like
Yeah.
a dragon bane slayer sword.
What
Yeah.
about you, Josh?
For level ups, I don't know, once a month or something. Tell a story going, just like, "Ah, it's time to level up. You're doing it."
You, you know the way that we level in Venture into Vimros makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah. I my rule of thumb is like at lower levels, it's like every 3 sessions more or less, you'll level up until you get to that next tier, and then it's like 4, and then 5, and then 6.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Or
whatever
about depending
the
like there's
modifier
some
is. Proficiency
yeah.
modifier plus 1 sessions.
Yeah, pretty much actually, but it also depends on if the players actually do anything, like when it's just a
Yeah,
shopping episode, I'm like,
yeah. If they're
"This does not count." Sorry.
they're chasing chickens, hiding in barrels.
Well, we don't get experience for haggling with the store
No.
or the shop owner. Come on.
Like, well, okay. We'll save that for a different time for my Dungeons and Dragons or my not Dungeons and Dragons, my Dragon Ball one cuz I purposely wrote in rules for shopping episodes and training montages and stuff of like
Mhm.
if your like passive charisma is 16 plus, you don't get anything for charming this, very easily charmable person. You actually have to try. There has to be some for me, it's more about, like, getting failed checks than
Mhm.
successful ones.
So I guess what I'm gathering from all this is that we need to play the Final Fantasy TTRPG that's out and see how long it takes us to break it. And if that's 60 levels, that's 60 levels.
I mean, we could also do what we did for Daggerheart, level like
True.
a low level, mid-level, high level, and then a 60th level where we don't know how to read any of our character stats because it's so compounded.
I have a feeling that if we jump into Final Fantasy at 60th level, we'll figure it out much quicker, especially because it's
Yeah.
based off an MMO. And to be
It
honest, MMOs aren't meant to be super complicated. You learn the tactics of the boss fight and you do the boss fight.
so
Also,
that
its
does
action economy is very D&D.
yes. I wanna touch on since it's based off of MMO, they do have the holy trinity
Not that holy trinity.
of, DPS tank healer set up in the
Mhm.
in the TTRPG. Like, it's
Yeah.
encouraged to still follow that structure. And another weird rule, if there's ever a TPK, well, let me backtrack slightly. When you die in the game, like, you do revive. Like, there's some
That's
mechanic
dope.
where you will
Yeah.
always revive. There's no permadeath in the Final Fantasy one. But if you get a TPK, you just respawn in front of the dungeon and try again. That is crazy from the D&D perspective. Be like,
Yeah.
"Damn, you failed the whole encounter. Let's just rewind it, do it again." Like and, like, the RP I feel like would be fun if everybody
Yeah.
respawned in character, be like, "Damn, we fucked that up. Let's
Oh,
jump
man.
back in there. I know what we can do next
Nice
I
time."
guy.
yeah. But I
The idea of, like, just reviving at the front of a dungeon after dying is hysterical to me. Like, I've always thought that was a funny idea. Like, even, like, in, like, when you play WoW and you have to like, run back to your spirit. There's lore in WoW about this stuff, and I just find it hysterical, the idea that, like, there's normal people in the universe, that they die and they're dead. But then there's a select group of people that are born that they're just adventurers, and anytime they die, they just pop back up. Like, could you
well,
imagine, like, just the
yeah.
normal life of that? Like, you kick someone out of the bar, they hit their head on the ground, and all of a sudden they get back up fully healed. Like, hey, man, why'd you kick me out?
Yeah, they get back up outside the bar. Uh,
Yeah.
the I think a show that actually does that really well is the Delicious Dungeon.
Oh, I have not
Yeah.
started it. I've been
Yeah,
interested.
so it's not a spoiler if you haven't watched it, but basically in the dungeon, regular healing magic can resurrect you from death because the dungeon traps your soul to its body.
Oh,
Yeah. So if you
okay.
have a strong enough healing spell, you basically get revived as long as you die within the dungeon. If you die outside the dungeon, you're dead. So I imagine like it would be easy enough in this Final Fantasy tabletop game to kind of have that same thing as like, oh, in this world, there is some magic veil that keeps your body tied to it, and then a group of people comes in and just heals you. It's like, there'll be 10 gold pieces per person, please. Oh, you can't pay it. Well, that sword looks mighty fine. I'll just be taking that. Or they hold all your gear ransom until you pay them. I mean, that honestly would be the smartest
Yeah.
thing is they take all your weapons from you. They revive you and it's like, hello, hello. We're the Resurrection Boys. No affiliation to the British one that dug up dead folks.
They just keep your old corpse. Like, you come back in a fully new body with base gear or, nothing. And they just
That
keep
would
your
be
corpse
funny.
from you.
So we're implementing this in Vimros, right?
Not Vimros, but maybe another setting, maybe another system. We
Oh
did talk
goodness.
about the, action economy a bit, but I don't wanna dive into it. It don't look too impressive. It's just another
No.
action economy. One thing is
Yeah.
they use, like, mana points, MP, and, for spellcasters, I've always loved, a spell point pool opposed to
Yeah.
D&D's spell slots. That
Yeah.
telling a new player how to use spell slots is like pulling teeth, man.
Been there.
Well, you
It's
can
not
only use 4 first level spell slots, and then you have 3 second level. But you
Yeah.
can't you have to upcast your first level spells if you wanna use them.
Mhm.
Mhm.
But
Wait, what's
I
with the
upcasting?
the in Final Fantasy, you regenerate 2 points per turn,
Oh, that's kind of
and that
fun.
seems really interesting.
Oh, that's really neat because, like,
Yeah,
especially because, like, in an MMO, you have like a mana regeneration that's normally tied to something like intellect or spirit or
mhm,
something like that. That's really neat. We've talked about this before, like off air, about like the video gamification of D&D
mhm.
is a touchy subject, right?
Mhm.
But it the idea that you can't get spell points back unless you're a sorcerer, you know what I mean, who can expend for spell slots or spell points, has always seemed kind of silly. There's no passive regeneration throughout the day. Like you have one really big combat in the morning and then you don't get anything back throughout the day. Like, yeah, you get a short rest here and there and you get some points back, but it's like that also requires the entire group to go, hey, we're gonna take a quick short rest. Or your DM to be nice enough to go, hey guys, I think you guys took a equivalent of a short rest. And not every DM is that nice out there, you know? Where I've got two of them right here.
Yeah.
When you're all traveling through the jungles of Xylea and you're like, "Oh, we need to take a short rest." I'm like, nah. You
No.
ticked off some nature spirits and they're coming for you. You don't get a short rest."
I do like not necessarily the exactly 1 hour for the short rest, but
Yeah.
something in game happens and you gain the benefits of a short rest. I like that.
Yeah.
I do like the MP regeneration, but that's also because I'm kind of a fan of Shadowrun, where you have dice pools that you can use per your turn, and unless something reduces that pool for whatever reason, you get your whole pool back. So if you want to go like super Kamehameha for your first action of your first turn, cool, but you're wide open for everything else later.
The dice pool sounds fun.
So this was going to be my one concern reading through this, and also just knowing the Final Fantasy games of DMs and or players keeping track of weaknesses, brinks of death. It looks like
Yeah.
stuns, paralysis, whatever.
Conditions in general
Yeah,
are always bogged down the gameplay.
I like that in D&D. Usually it's like a minute or 10 minutes unless you remake the save and then there's like conditions. So like that for the rest of combat, most likely. You're blinded for the rest of combat unless you make the save.
Yeah, I think that depends on the group you're playing with, though. Because I mean, we're pretty good at keeping each other honest when it comes to conditions. I think if you're a DM who's playing with a group who are not honest about conditions, maybe tracking is
Or
going to
forgetful.
be
Yeah, or forget.
forgetful
Yeah.
or forgetful. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe we just limit a little bit. You know, don't make it so limited. Still use them, but just cut back a little bit to make your life easier.
Exhaustion's the only condition.
There you go.
Yeah. Overall, it looks cool. From a layout standpoint, it's a little janky, but I also know that it's like their rough draft version. It feels very like Microsoft early edition, like early 2000 Microsoft.
Oh
They took
gosh.
Final Fantasy 9 Windows and put it on Final Fantasy 14 is what it looks like.
Oh.
Yeah. To keep it in universe. To build off of this, I don't know how much everyone's been looking at other tabletop systems, but what game system, like video game, would you want to see in a tabletop? And what, to also go off that, is there a current tabletop system you think it would work well in?
Seeing which video game would I wanna see as a tabletop?
Yeah. And then what system would it be in?
Okay.
Yeah. Like an example would be like Doom, right?
Right.
But then that would be very I could totally see that in Shadowrun.
So the first would be Mass Effect. I know someone has already made a Mass Effect like 5e crossover. It's like in 7.world or whatever. Um, so I know it can fit in the 5e world, but I would love an actual like Mass Effect universe tabletop that's like designed out where there's an actual system for like building your fleet or building up like your armada within the governments. It's been a little bit since I played Mass Effect, but
Yeah.
building up within like C-Sect or the Citadel and stuff. The other one would be the Destiny series, so like Destiny 1 or 2, that universe. Okay, and here's why. Here's why.
Sorry, before you begin, I'm just gonna say, everyone, if you aren't aware, Jacob has a Destiny. It's very bad. Anytime that I'm on during the weekend, I just see Jacob playing Destiny for like the full 20 hours.
It's real bad. I like I said, you guys outed me last week, and I won't put the number of hours that I'm, playing because I'm editing. But the reason why I think it would be fun is a little bit of what we touched on with Final Fantasy with the death system that Destiny uses. So in Destiny, when you die, the only way to permanently die as a guardian is for your ghost to have been destroyed first. And I think that brings up a fun mechanic in combat when you're playing that if you go down, it's not death saves, it's number of rounds until you come up or until one of your party members revives you at your ghost. And I think that's a real fun mechanic that you could play around with because you could also have absolute like painful moment that you're fighting the big bad guy and he grabs your ghost and shatters it in front of your allies. And that would be so fun.
And yeah, and deadly encounters would be great too, because it
Yeah.
doesn't matter that much if people get downed a couple times.
Yeah, it'd be a ton of fun.
I honestly, that is one of my favorite memories playing Destiny when it first came out. Destiny 1, not 2. And I'm doing like a raid on Mars, and the people I'm playing with, I'm just like running around reviving them, like, get back up. Because they kept going down. The big Mars boss guy that like takes up the whole room and just like one shots them.
It's a ton of fun, and I think that in a TTRPG would be an absolute blast.
So I have also two games in mind that I'd like to play in a tabletop setting. First one I'll mention is Monster Hunter, and that's kind of one of the things about Monster Hunter that new players are surprised about is there's no health bars present, and that's kind of something that's just part of D&D already. Fight it till it dies, if you're playing that type of combat. I don't know. I've liked Monster Hunter. It'd be fun that your objective is to chase this thing down and kill it. I think having like a tracking phase, hunting phase, and if you want to trap it, then there could be like a whole trap sequence.
And are you saying like 5th edition would be the system you'd run it in?
I
Or what's
suppose. I don't know. I don't know too many systems. Monster of the Week would make sense just because the title.
Well,
yeah.
I'm not super familiar with the Monster Hunter universe. Like everyone I know keeps telling me to play it,
Yeah.
but I've just never played any of the Monster Hunter games. So, just if you don't mind running me through real quick, like the idea of like how would this work in a TTRPG setting?
Yeah. So Monster Hunter does actually tell a story through the monster hunting. There's
Mhm.
few quests or monsters, whatever, that are like part of the storyline. And if you want better or different gear, then you choose which monsters to go kill to get the gear off them. So
Okay.
like you would choose your weapon instead of a class. So I guess your class would be what weapon you have. And the gear should just be like everyone knows the fullest of gear. Like if you want the sword that does like some cool snow damage or snow effect, like we need to go kill that snow thing so I can get the weapon I want, and
Yeah.
then we'll go back and hit the main monster that's terrorizing the town.
And also, if I do different versions have different classes? Otherwise, I thought pretty much it was based on what weapons and armor you
It's what
gave
weapon you
yourself.
have. The weapons have
Yeah.
different sets, and the you get like passive bonuses based on your armor and weapons too.
See,
But
I actually
yeah,
kind
for
of
the most
like
part, it's
that.
just what weapon
Yeah.
you hold is what class you are.
Yeah. I like that because then it's more I think it kind of re-emphasizes combat style based off
Yeah,
of weapons. So like if you're an archer, like yeah, if you want to really min-max your archer, you get this armor and you get this bow
yeah,
boost and you
Yeah.
get this thing from this other monster
yeah,
and you stay the F away from the
yeah,
middle of combat.
Yeah.
yeah. I think that has to be a whole new system. I couldn't imagine trying to port that into a 5e.
I think you could do it. I mean, my home game kinda does that 'cause I introduced kaiju hunting and
Yeah.
stuff, but when it comes down to the classes, yeah, you're right. I think maybe monster of the week, so, the apocalypse system
Mhm.
would be interesting, but, or Daggerheart.
Oh, you're probably right about that.
Like,
Just
it's
2d12 does not bode well with me.
yeah. I mean, it could still be a D20 system for attacking, but their, like, damage threshold and, like, number of hits would also make sense, and then no classes, but based off weapons. Whatever
Mhm.
weapon you get, like, different cards that you can build would make
Yeah.
sense, so you kinda makes it
Right.
a little adjustment, but I think that would work, and because it would also I feel like Monster Hunter is very resource management between,
Yeah,
like
yeah, it definitely can be.
yeah. The few times I've played it, I'm like, it's like I can just button mash
Yeah,
my attack, or I have resources that I have to figure out how to time and
yeah,
use.
Mhm. The
So, yeah.
way Monster Hunter has always been explained to me and why I haven't touched it yet, right? It was explained to me as if Bloodborne or Dark Souls or whatever was actually fun.
Yeah.
That's how it was explained to
it's
me,
not
is
that
that the
slow, I would say, because you can grab the slowest weapon and it feels like that, and then you're
yeah.
missing half your shots because 'cause you're not familiar with the monster, but I don't know. It feels like arcadey to me almost. You just hop in there, do the thing, and it's easy to go kill one monster and then not worry about playing for a week, like, and then you
Yeah.
can no life it and you're sitting there playing for 8 hours a day, getting that full set of armor.
I think also the fun part of that would be building the rules around item and weapon crafting. Like, building something that's general enough that you can be like, "Okay, if you're the DM, you tell them if you want a lightning thing, you need it from a lightning monster."
Monster Hunter kind of forces the grind a little bit because they'll be like, you need 2 Barroth claws and 1 scalp and 3 tails, and it's like super freaking grocery list. But I'll just be like 2 monster parts from whatever monster it is, like just 2 whatever. I wouldn't give it every individual part. Just be like, go slay one, and you can build the thing out of the one dead body. All right. I like monster. That'd be cool in a tabletop setting. My second thing I would say is Path of Exile. I urge you, if you're not familiar, right now, just Google an image of Path of Exile skill tree. I would play a classless D&D, just straight up D&D rules, but classless. The way that the Path of Exile skill tree works is almost all the passives in the game are available to every character. But where your starting point is in this skill tree is that's how you create your character. Like if you wanted to be like the thief equivalent, you start over in a different corner where you're closer to the abilities a thief might want. And then like a thief going over and trying to grab magic's gonna like degrade your class because you're going through all these baby
Yeah.
buffs to go grab some magic.
It's the same as the Final Fantasy X skill tree.
Is it?
That idea is the same because it's one massive skill tree, but all the characters start in different
Yeah.
Yeah.
things.
I
So,
I
like,
would love
one
to
starts in
literally
Cleric
just play
Land.
D&D, but all
Yeah.
the character abilities are properly separated in one giant tree. I think that'd be really fun. And that would be something that you need like 60 levels for too, like
Mhm.
so you can
Oh,
actually
yeah.
reach some interesting abilities and passives.
Well, what I like about both of them is that you can kinda, like, worm your way around the skill
Yeah.
tree
Yeah.
map. So you're like, "Oh, I want some more barbarian stuff. I'll work that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Oh, I realize I need some cleric stuff. I'll work that
Mhm.
way." But it
Yeah, I
also
like
forces you to,
Yes.
actually have to work for it.
yeah.
And to still work through your tree at the same time.
So yeah, skill points or ability points, and rather than like experience would be cool.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that a lot. Just that idea in general. You're gonna have maximum 60 levels. Each level you get 6 skill points. Spend them in your
Mhm.
skill tree. I feel like me personally, I would need a app to
Yeah,
track
I
that.
was just gonna bring that up too. I was like, it certainly could not be a pen and paper deal because
Yeah.
I feel like there would
I
be
feel
fist
like
fights about that being a pen and paper deal.
it would be fun it would be fun to try and, like, work that out pen and paper, right? Like, the nerd in me would find that to be fascinating, but I would never wanna play that pen and paper.
It I think
Definitely want an app.
I think the limitation would be if you wanted to make new classes, you'd have to
Mhm.
make a new skill tree or nestle it, be like you start here and it does this. Or the other one would be like this is universe 1 skill tree, universes 2
Yeah,
skill tree, and like each one has its own theme. So like maybe universe 2 is monsters, so it's like vampire,
yeah.
Frankenstein, werewolf, whatever
It could tie to
classes.
the lore too. It could be like regional, like this is class tree. If you're born in this area, this is what you'd be familiar with, or something like that.
Well, and also with both with the skill trees, both for Final Fantasy 7 and the Exile, there's no it also doesn't say anything really that you couldn't stack them because you're still having like a skill point. You're like, okay, I'm going to start my tree on this map skill tree now
Mhm.
Mhm.
because it's all about for both of them just like yeah, stacking passives and then unlocking certain key abilities.
And when you reach level 10 or whatever level, then you can get the skill tree for the class you want to specialize in.
I like the potential something like this has for like new class creation.
Yeah.
You could start as like you could start in the warlock skill tree and then start working in the cleric skill tree and slowly build like a necromancer or something. It's stuff like this that makes me feel like D&D could innovate so much more. you know,
Yeah.
you know.
Well, D&D's always wanted to be, not always, but D&D 5e has always been beginner welcome as much as they can be.
Yeah, one D&D I think is gonna inch away from that just because of I think I've told you before, the amount of things that someone has to keep track of now, like your weapon
Yeah.
masteries,
Mhm.
new powerful abilities, getting feat set for various reasons, like that's a lot. So I think it might turn off some beginners who are like, I just want an easy game. I don't want to keep
Don't
track of
don't worry
20
about
things.
that. D&D
Yeah,
Beyond will have it all in there. You don't have to track nothing.
And,
true. I mean, yeah,
find your group, talk to your DM.
yeah. You probably guess what game or type of game I would probably pick based off of other stuff I'm working on.
Mortal Kombat.
Kinda,
Mortal Kombat
actually.
Yeah.
TTRPG.
Dragon Ball Z, Budokai, Tenkaichi,
Mhm. Sonic
17,
Adventure
whatever they're on.
2, TTRPG.
Oh, it's a matter of time. But, I definitely yeah, I would love to see honestly, I'm gonna change it, Sonic. I wanna see a Sonic the Adventure tabletop RPG. I feel like it would be probably along the lines of Monster of the Week, honestly,
I have
because
to be.
I'm
very
actually an
rule
Echidna
like
warrior, so I get +3 to buy.
I am an echidna. I have echidna fury. I can
You know the worst part
glow
about that
red.
system would be? If you played a Sonic freaking system, you would amass hordes of gold, and as soon as you took 1 damage, it just flies everywhere.
Your
You
life is
weren't
purely
vanishing.
tied to how much gold you have. Oh no,
I
I'm
mean,
out of gold rings. One more attack and I'm dead.
you can't forget that if you're a lab grown hedgehog, then you get to have a gun.
He does.
We can cut out the part about the classist health bar.
In researching DBZ and those games, it definitely like yeah, there is like leveling up, whatever. But fighting games, it's more about skill. So
Mhm.
something like Shadowrun, Monsters of the Week, something where it's like, yeah, you could access, or it takes a very short time to access your really cool abilities. Um, but otherwise, you can just do it, and then based off the tier of monster or foe, it's like, yeah, you're not gonna do anything. Your
Yeah.
your Yamcha versus Frieza? Nah, nah, brah. We all know how this is gonna end. But that's like what I'm working on. I do think that it needs its own like custom system for yeah, again, the
Yeah.
tiers of play. I think Shadowrun because of the dice pools would make a lot of sense, you know, them charging up like you can recharge your dice pools, do a whole bunch really quick if you want, you know, do the flurry of blows that we always see them do or charge up and be like, I do one massive Kamehameha at the end of combat because I'm using all my dice. And if I don't, it should kill you. But if it doesn't, okay, I'm stuck now. And then it just comes down to like class abilities or special abilities
Yeah.
from your training.
Feel like a system like what you're talking about could actually lend itself to being like a PvP like tabletop. At the end of the day, like DBZ and Mortal Kombat and Tekken, all those they're fighting games. You know, DBZ is all about fight, get stronger, fight, get stronger, fight, get stronger, yell a little bit, fight, get stronger, you know? And I feel like you could do that very easily into a PvP system.
I think that's what gets missed in PvP systems. The fighters are like testing out the other person and then
Yeah.
saving their moves that would like burn their ki or make them get weaker or whatever. Like we all know that when Goku does Kaioken times 10, like it reduces his endurance. So being able to be like, okay, I'm gonna save that Kaioken times 10 to see if I actually need it, but I'm gonna push my opponent first before I call for that little boost. Yeah, no, I could talk forever about Dragon Ball Z, but that's not why we're here today. We've been talking about all things tabletop RPG and under the sun. I would love to know what video games specifically they would like to see if they could play it, like 1 through whatever they're at now, 17, 20, double X, triple
45.
something, 45. What skill tree did it the best or what system? Like the materia system in number 7 was pretty cool. But Josh, you started us out. How do you want to end the episode?
I'm leaving. Thank you for watching, one and all. We are Ampersandbox, and this has been another episode of Unboxing.